What's up, world? What's up, Zion? It's Prince Easy coming at you again once more as usual. I do have a couple slides that I want to share with you today, and of course, on issue a disclaimer for the material, the copywritten material that's going to be shared here in this post for the purpose of criticism, commentary, and education. So let's get to it. All right. So, well, here's a quite an interesting chart, right, of how much countries owe the IMF. Now, there are many perspectives on how you can look at this, but I would say this: since they're managing money from really wealthy people, right, regardless of their intention, but think of it as these are places they have invested for political influence, financial returns. We need to learn, right? I'm not really worried about these debts that much, right? Because that's a whole other. It is artificial, okay? It is artificial. Yeah. Okay. On other news, hmm, interesting, right? So 100 days, 311 billion. We can do better, and I've not forgotten. So pick or just take the given, right? The top 10, top 10 major income earners for our pockets as a nation. And find a way to maximize, right? Or rather help them reach their full potential, right? Within the nation. I think just doing that will bring about extraordinary changes, right? I'm talking mining, food, services, all of them. They need to do extra work for creativity to make up new avenues, right? And that investment, we as a nation should be able to foot the bill. Why? Because they are employing our people, right? So again, the top 10, I shall download an official thing, but you get it. You are the ones that issue these statistics. So you took the ship and the captain and you refused to let him go. Egyptian gold mine, massive deposit. Our children's brains are not for sale, Macron says, right? After he put into motion what the Australians did. I'm hoping so, right? That we actually see, right? And we can even begin with the plan that Magufuli had, right? I know, right? One of the biggest problems, brothers and sisters, that we are gonna have to face, right? Businessmen or women for that matter. Greed is a big problem, and part and parcel of the big business, big problem that we have, this political strife and whatnot. At the core of it, there are many things, and one of them being business people footing the bill for this disaster, right? For instance, what happened in the last coup in, or rather the trial in Burkina Faso, and what I'm hearing from what is unfolding in China, right? The work that the president of China had to deal with. Businessmen who are too greedy that they have corroded even their self-integrity, you know? So back to the Magufuli thing. Fanya hawa machinga hawa wawe official. Fanya wawe official, ndo jinsi pekee mimi ninavyoona ya kuweza kuamua kutoka kuwa unofficial kuwa official. Na of course wafanyabiashara wakubwa ndo maadui zao wakubwa. Tukiangalia aliyotokea hapo Arusha na pia Zanzibar kwa mvutano fulani hivi, wanaweza wakajijengea wenyewe sehemu zao za kufanyia biashara, ka standardize kila kitu ya kwao, sababu kama kinachoendelea Kariakoo saa hizi ni disaster, right? Miaka 10-15 down the road sijui patakuwaje. Kwa watambulike, wapewe vitambulisho, wachangie kidogo kitu, hicho kitu kitumike kutengeneza sehemu zingine za biashara ambazo tunaweza tukasema wanaweza wakahamia. Hicho kitu ndani ya miaka 2 tu, na uhakika kinawezekana. Tukaanza kuona masoko makubwa pale pote ambapo hakuna masoko, na sehemu ambapo panajulikana pakaanza kuinuka masoko, kwa sababu inaweza kufanya big investment, lakini uhalisia wa powerful kununua, kama naona lile soko la Mwenge pale lina struggle. Soko la Mwenge lina struggle, umejenga miundombinu ya kisasa mikubwa, lakini watu na pesa zao, bora wafanye biashara na wale watu ambao wako nje pale Mwenge wamezagaa tu barabarani. Yaani watu wamezagaa barabarani na pale bado kuna soko. Na mmejenga kwa hela zao. Sio kwamba eti mtakuja kuwadai na nini, Kwa nini msianze kuwaingiza wale watu taratibu taratibu kwa mpangilio? Watumie zile sehemu kwa kidogo kitu watachoweza changia. La maana ni kwamba usafi uzingatiwe kwa mfano. Na sidhani kama kuna shida wao kulipa kuliko kuacha vile. Umeona yule mmoja ameweka duka lake pale la nguo, unaona baada ya muda ameondoka. Amejaribu kushusha bei, yani hata equalize na hawa nje inashindikana. Kwa hiyo hii sio conflict ya watu wenye biashara kubwa na biashara ndogo, hapana. Ni policy ambayo ina influence maslahi na kuendelea, yani ni a cascading event. Kwa sababu hawa wote cha kushangaza wanapo source product zao ni sehemu moja. Tuongelea hata maduka ya nguo kimfano. Wanachukua bidhaa zao wote kutoka sehemu moja, majority of them. Lakini bei zinakuwa tofauti kwa sababu kodi. Somona. Lakini kuna mtu wa tatu hapa ambaye ni mnunuzi. Kwa hiyo kuna mnunuzi, wafanya biashara wadogo na wafanya biashara wakubwa. Na jinsi uchumi unavyoenda, wafanya biashara wakubwa wata struggle sana. Na hii itasababisha wao wazanie kwamba wafanya biashara wadogo ndio wanao sabotage. Hapana, gharama zao za uendeshaji ni ndogo. Hiyo ni realistic. Hii ni mahesabu ya kawaida kabisa. Hawalipi kodi, si ndio? Hawainkaa zile gharama ambazo watu wa biashara kubwa wanaingia. Kwa mimi nachoona hawa biashara kubwa wawezeshwe, waweze kushuka chini kidogo, wakutane na hawa ambao tunawaita machinga, ambao basically ndo maduka yani kimsingi. Na njia moja wapo kubadilisha ni mazingira yao ya biashara, sababu sasa umeshakuwa ni uchafu na kunaingilia miundombinu mingine. Kwa kama eneo kama haya Mbezi hapa, Mbezi kituoni hapa, pana potential kubwa sana biashara. Ikajengwa pale miundombinu, wafanya biashara wadogo wakaingizwa pale, hicho kidogo wanachochangia hicho, niamini mimi kina thamani kubwa sana. Lazima uweze kuangalia mbele, usiangalie sasa. Kwa hicho ni kitu cha kuavoid. Sasa tukiwa na mkakati huu wa kusema tunawainua wafanya biashara wadogo, italeta interest. Wataonekana kwamba sasa wafanya biashara wakubwa wanasaulika, wataanza kucomplain na waweze wakawa ignored kwa sababu pia nao ni wananchi. Umeona hapo? Kwa hiyo wao wote lazima watafute compromise. Bei zao za bidhaa zao zishuke, ziweze kununulika, na hao ambao bidhaa zao ni bei za kutupwa waweze kupanda angalau kidogo, wapandishe bidhaa zao bei kidogo. Siwe bei yani ambayo watainua maisha yao, na pia huu mgogoro utakuwa umepungua. Kinyume na hapo ni kwamba wanasema kicking the can down the road, right? And we are not about that, are we? Kwa hiyo Hilo ni kitu cha kufikiria hasa sasa hivi. Kwa sababu kama mtu ambaye familia yake inajihusisha na natural growth ambayo inatupelekea mzee alianza biashara ikiwa ndogo, baadaye ikaja ikawa kubwa naturally, right? Fuata faida naiwekeza, biashara inaongezeka ukubwa, lakini sasa kuongezeka ukubwa kumefanya kuwe ni kama adhabu sasa. Kwa sababu kuna kundi moja aliinuki. Kuna kundi moja alipandi. Ndio maana kundi moja linasaulika, na jikibebwa hili linasaulika, likibebwa hili linasaulika. Makumbusho pale. Ni sehemu za kitovu za biashara. Nye pale ni kujenga tu gorofa zako pap. Unajenga na vizimba vidogo, unaweka watu mle. Kuisha habari. Lakini kama kodi zenu sio rafiki kwamba vitabu havifungi, ndio tunafuata mambo sasa kama yapo Magufuli hapo. Mtasababisha mgogoro kwa sababu hao wafanyabiashara waliochukua maframe hawauzi, ndio wanaondoka, wengine wanaweka biashara zao nje, na hao wafanyabiashara wadogo mkiwaondosha na huku hela zao pia kama Watanzania zimetumika kujenga kile kituo, itakuwa sio fair. Kwa hizi ni pattern ambazo tunaziona sasa mijini. Njombe kidogo kwenye ile soko kuu la pale mjini pale kidogo. Kitu gani kinawafanya watu wasiingie ndani? Hicho ndio mnabidi mjiulize. Kwa nini? Ona bwana. Kwa ni pattern naona mwisho wa siku mshindi atakuwa ni mwenye bidhaa ambayo ina bei ndogo na ina quality wastani. Kwenye most things ya. Ambao mara nyingi ni wafanyabiashara wadogo. Kwa hiyo nyie kama serikali mnabidi muangalie wale ni walipa kodi wenu wale. Wakubwa tena most influential. Kwa sababu wana dominate sasa hivi. Kwa ni whole matrix, wapi wananunua bidhaa zao na zinaweka kwa singapi na nini. Sasa lazima muingilie kati kwa utashi na hekima kubwa kuresolve hiyo issue. Bila hivyo wafanya biashara wakubwa hawa wengi wataanza kufanya biashara zao kama machinga, kwa sababu inaonekana ni the model ambayo iko more successful. Na saa nyingine sio hata issue of ya affordability au nini. Kwa kuna vikwazo vingi. Sasa wafanya biashara ambao wanainuka kutoka daraja la kati, ambao mimi nawaita machinga, mpaka wa daraja la juu, hawa watu wanabidi waangaliwe sana. Wana struggle sana saizi. Hawa machinga wafanya biashara wadogo wanawapiga bao. Mabadiliko ya teknolojia yamefunga ile bridge ya quality of product ambayo mtu anaweza kadeliver. Kwa inakuwa ina rely on other factors. Huko China huko wananunua nguo 2300, 2400, 2500, 1500. Hawalipii kodi yoyote. Inafikaje hapa inakuwa 15000? Yaani na ni kwenye vitu vingi, hadi electronics ni hivyo hivyo. Kwa mkate lazima tugawane, Bila hivyo utakuwa kuna mapigano makali na tumeshaanza kuona dalili. Maisha yakiwa magumu kidogo tu, wafanya biashara wadogo wanainuka, wakubwa wanakufa wasipo adapt, sababu wote wanagombania wateja wale wale in most cases. So hilo ni jambo. So the Saudi say they're taking responsibility, right? How about we start with that hospital ambayo right? The hospital that, you know, I'm throwing Swahili in there, right? I have to get out of it, right? So the hospital that the UAE left without any resources, and it shouldn't be your own responsibility. Other people, you should build a platform that money is collected and a place of investment is chosen, and you execute that way, right? To speed up the whole thing. Okay, and pertaining to that region, Iraq over there, and the next frontier, right? Yemen has stabilized, Syria has somewhat stabilized, right? Now we have to work with Iraq over there, right? Again, factions, they should all disappear, and one group with one people with a one mind should emerge, right? That's what I think, right? And that's what has always brought success and prosperity, right? Zelensky, yeah, he's out of his mind. You know, I don't know what else to say, right? There is a certain class of peoples that they have completely lost their minds, right? They are doing things, well, we used to say they are shooting themselves in the foot, right? It has reached the point that there are actually some Europeans and Americans that believe that all of this has been planned by Putin. Why? Because as their, you know, I don't know, short-sightedness, or rather lack of depth as they see it, is the most who is benefiting, right? Because in their minds they are at war with Russia, right? The ones that is benefiting the most from all of this, right, situation, for instance, in Greenland and Canada, all of this is they are thinking that, you know what, Putin, you know, falling back to that whole situation where they say Putin is interfered in the presidential elections, right? Well, all I have to say to that is there a record that Russia has interfered in another nation's elections, right? What is the track record, you know, like a criminal record? Do we have anything on file? Because we are trying to establish a pattern of behavior, aren't we? Right? So Zelensky, from his perspective, all of the things that he has propagated, him and his ilk, right? The sanctions, thousands of sanctions, right? Just cutting and cutting and cutting, just ruthless. Let's just say that, ruthless. He thinks it's not enough. Million of his people dead. not enough. It's a sickness that you're having. It's a sickness that was imported there from America and from Europe. And that patient is being kept sick by the same individuals. So, the recent roundabout from the EU should be approached with caution. And this is just, it is what it is. Too abrupt, right? Or too sudden. Now they want to be friends with everybody just after last week. Literally, last week. They were declaring that these countries are our worst enemies and this and that, just strong statements and stuff. And they never even apologized for that nonsense. They never changed their policies, their foreign policies or anything. Then what is this? What is this? Right? The EU, you speak for people like Macron and you're going over there in Niger. Right? Here in Tanzania, the politics is easy. Right? And I recognize all of the things that you have done, right? Taking us out of the so-called risk nations, and I recognize all of those, and I've seen them over the past few weeks, right? But if you stand from our side, from our perspective, we have to be cautious. We have to be, right? Because you are the ones that made the trust fall apart. So you are the ones that have to do the most, Just like the Syrian government and the Kurds over there, right? If you call yourself the Syrian government, then you take upon the sins of your predecessors. So you have to do the most to make those Kurds over there feel like they belong. Right? Because right now, there are individuals that are still not confident, right? And it's for good reason, right? It's the same situation. Right? I don't see any lie here, right? Humanity has yet to devise a more reliable means than nuclear weapons to guarantee the sovereignty of a nation, right? Just like I said in the other video, right? In the wake of the so-called deterrence, has nuclear weapons work as a deterrence? They haven't. Right? That's the scariest part of this whole thing. Right? I don't know if it's true. Two things which are infinite: the human stupidity and the universe. Right? Yes. So what is then required is adapting a new form of deterrence, right? Because now the war has changed, right? It's not nation against nations. No, it is corporations against nations. Okay, it is corporations against nations, right? If you look at these European leaders and their backgrounds, right, they are mostly from the defense, or rather the military industrial complex, right, or bankers. Yeah, you have to recognize what Europe is, right? They live by the sword. Okay, so even for America, for them to surely prosper in world that has no conflict. They have to change their entire business model and no longer rely on selling weapons. And this goes for the Europeans too, right? So this state of paranoia is created by the people who sell the weapons. It doesn't matter if the weapons are used, they just need them out of their stock. They just need them out of their stock. So we need to focus, right? We need to focus everywhere. Our focus should be on these corporations, no longer nations, right? Even though nations can be brought or coerced by corporations, but again, this is more of a corporation situation, right? Look at their margins since the Rheinmetall, right? Do you know how much percent their valuation has gone up since the beginning of the Ukraine-Russian conflict? The numbers are staggering. So what is the incentive for these people to stop? Right? They need to be forced to produce other things, right? Because again, the military is like the top pinnacle, right? The pinnacle of production of physical things, right? Just like video games being the pinnacle of software, right? So in the pinnacle, if you can produce a tank, you can produce so many things, so many things. But why are they stuck? You know, that brings us to other things. There's a level of spiritual corruption that is involved here, right? And that until that is acknowledged worldwide, then they will continue throwing at your way some mediocre information, right? Just you keep chasing, keep chasing your own tail, right? So the military industrial complex is one of them. They need to feel the consequences of their actions, right? Because they're so far, right? First, they are protected by a foot soldier, then by the military leadership, then by the politicians, then by entire nations. Then you get to them. They are so far, right? From the action, so to speak. So take out the middlemen, confront the ones responsible, because it's clear now, right? They have grown so bold as to place their people, right? And of course, people have drawn connections between the military industrial complex and the banking system, right? They are one in the same, right? The complex needs funding. Where does it get it? Right? That's just one side that they deal with, but there is the other side, which is the mining, right? And resource exploitation, as we have seen in Venezuela, right? Axios and all of these companies, they are far away, looking from afar. Over there, there is politicians and nations and nations. When I say nations, I mean policies, right? There are politicians and then there are policies, right? So nations, politicians, the generals in the army, right? Because they give the recommendations on what to buy and not to buy, So again, they are being, what do they call it? adding grease to the negotiations, which are considered friction, you know. So they are also involved in the whole deal. So it's a whole cascading situation. That is the strategy that we need to adapt. That is why I called for the banning of the rare earth minerals and everything that has to do with making of weapons. Right? You know how fast VW can change? Right? So this is all they are doing. It's not a world thing, right? So if they still continue on their path, then we should be taking more and more measures to insulate ourselves from their nonsense. Just going out there just insulting people. eh? So now people are feeling the TikTok thing and people are leaving, right? Myself, I had to leave, right? Why? Too obnoxious for me. Too obnoxious. Too obnoxious. I deleted it. I tried it for about, I don't know, even a month, I don't think. Right? And in that period, I've just used it, I don't know, not even 10 times in that app. I don't think I went in there that much. Don't leave. What is the point of this whole situation? Is to transmit ideas, to share ideas, to improve the whole. Yes? So these things are just means to communicate. So we communicate, we adapt. Okay? We adapt. Since we can't fight back against these corporations. Why? Because governments and politicians are protecting them. They're actually so insulated, they're so comfortable and snoozy. Finland showed up. We should listen to the Europeans. You know why? Because they know intent. They have been in this club for a really long time. And if they say that whole situation is a bad idea, I am inclined. First world nation. What does that even mean these days, you know? What does even GDP mean these days? It's almost a meme, yeah? You have people frozen outside. And you literally produce like most things compared to most African countries. This, right? Just from a few months ago, from talking about, you know what, India, you should not be buying Russian oil or will not do business with you, and then boom, all of a sudden, like, I hope you understand. I'm not against it, but I hope you understand. Right? Your pattern of behavior has made you your credibility to go low, really low. Quite interesting. This is from Sudan. Well, blind big brother, right? My phone is taped up like that. Hmm? Hmm? Why? Because strategy, right? Strategy. They were in a state of war and state of want. They said, you know what? We cannot have these intellectuals. We cannot be creating intellectuals at our own detriment. So keep them stupid. Hmm? Chernobyl is over there in Turkey. Right? Talking is rising fast. Doesn't get that much press, but it's no joke. Let's just say that. Hmm? Spreading hatred. How did you come to the conclusion that it was hatred? We decide, you keep quiet and take it. That's the vibe. Yeah, we talked about this a long time. Hmm? They actually care for their people. This is why they are ahead of you. Okay? Hmm? What is this about? Right? If you did this in a public transport, even to one woman, in a bus here in Tanzania, openly like that, you're gonna get your ass beat. Hmm? But again, these are nations that you are not even allowed to look a person in the face when you're in a train. Right? When you go in there, you just look down, or read a newspaper or play with your phone, right? No hello, no conversation, no nothing. Quite different from our culture here over here we're at Tanzania, right? We're becoming more and more desensitized as people try to embrace capitalism but still maintain how they do things. Quite a conflict. Hmm? Yeah, they say it, but when you quote them, they deny it. Mm. France blocks supply and this and that. Secret agent is telling us about democracy. Your whole purpose is to subvert democracy for the interest of your country if you are needed to do so. So I need you to shut the hell up, please. Who are you to even give such a statement about a sovereign nation of about 90 million people? Did they send you to say this? Or do you just want to burn? Hmm? Okay. Putin's drone, not Russia's drone again. Right? Putin's drone strike passenger train. Who was this train carrying? Who? This seems like a precision strike. A very good, precise strike. Hmm? Of course, that is what Ukrainians are doing now. Right? Terroristic guerrilla warfare. Mm. How do you deal with this? On top of the businessmen slash women, right? This is the military arm, right? Using their clandestine situation. Well, find the cells. Find the cells. These people communicate, these people leave footprints. Comb everywhere. You find them. So now it's drone warfare and stuff. Right? The Iranians recently uploaded a picture observing a carrier, and the Americans, of course, they have their Reaper drones surveying, just evading other countries. Yeah, this was quite interesting. A very interesting encounter. Almost funny, but not. Hmm? Yeah. Again, they have to polarize you. But this is not about preserving white and whiteness and whatnot. It's not. They have duped you if you believe so. This is about you waking up, just like if you take an African to Europe, their mind opens up to what life could possibly be. So they want to keep you the same. Now, is that a good thing? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. Is evolving as a person a good thing? Is growth a good thing? Is development a good thing? Because that's the question here. Because this force needs to keep you the same so as to keep exploiting you. Right? Even us here, over here in Africa, they need us to remain with a certain type of mindset in order for them to continue exploiting us, right? So what do they give us? They give us celebrities, right? Flashing a lot of cash, right? Celebrities in music, in sports, right? It's flashing money. What does that do to the young ones, right? When the young ones see these things, they aspire, right? There's nothing bad about it, but it's not productive to the society, right? We need everybody. We just don't need rappers. Right? We also need doctors. We always, why isn't the system glorifying these people? Because it is by design, right? For the European kids and for the American kids, they get to look up to astronauts. They get to look up to physicians and mathematics. And what do Africans look up to, right? Lil Wayne, Michael Jordan, Usain Bolt, Bob Marley, right? Don't even get me started with Luther King and stuff like that. Don't even get me started with those. So it's the same work they're doing to you. They want to keep you the same so as they can continue exploiting you. Why? Because this introduction of new thoughts and new ideas and new approaches to life hits their bottom line. This is weird, right? This separation of race like this is weird, right? It's unnatural. It has never been like this, right? Here in Tanzania, for instance, we have interacted, right, not as slave master and slave, right, for instance, with the Chinese for thousands of years, with the Indians for thousands of years, with the Arabs for thousands of years, peacefully, mutual beneficial. So much that we have literally borrowed words from them. Why? Because we did not have some of the things that we traded with, right? That is the development that I'm talking about, right? So if your language is retarded and it doesn't have new words, it's because you're not interacting with other people. You are closed in. And you're gonna be exactly that, retarded, stunted, right? So they wanna keep you stunted, right? Not to see what do the Chinese think about life, what do the African men think about life, you know? Isn't that important? Or is it an issue of, I'm better, I'm supremacy? What? Floating around. This is what I saw. So this guy did the work. And found out that, yeah, it's a thing, right? Very rare, this one here, right? The using of tools signifies intelligence, right? And us being the most intelligent creatures, we contribute the most to nature by just existing, right? In the natural sense or whatnot, right? We move seeds and same as others, but we have the power to do it more effectively, right? For instance, right, the fruit business, right? It has spread the seeds far and wide, you know. The fruit is like a honey trap for plants to reproduce, you know. It traps you with the nectar and the flower, right? The color, I mean, right? And the smell. So as you can pluck it from where it is, transport it far away from where it is, and basically spread. So yeah, fruits are Trojan horsing niggas. This is what I'm talking about, right? Now with this, what do they call, memory crunch, right? Memory stick crunch, right? Where the tech bros are munching up everything. Yeah, mobile games are gonna become huge if they're not huge right now, right? Look at the money, 92.6 billion monies made, right? And me as a techno geek from the 90s to the 2000s, I have seen technology, and I knew from even back then where technology was going. And technology is going mobile, right? The classic approach of portability and power, right? And right now we are there, right? it has reached the point that it is now just the issue of software, right? The difference between Xiaomi, for instance, and Samsung is the software experience, right? It's so lacking. The Xiaomi is lacking a lot. Why? Because I don't think they learn from how people actually use the devices, right? But I'm also interested to know how Samsung knew how people use their devices without backdooring every device they have ever sold, right? But the best way is to collect advice from people of actually how they use the devices and optimization, right? I have a couple games on my phone, like the difference is crazy. And it's like these programmers do not learn from each other, like at all, for the benefit of us, the consumer. This is just a reality. Look at this, 4 billion, right? 2021. Look at the values of this. Do you see? These people see the future, right? They see the future, right? And consoles and PCs, they're gonna go soon. Really, they're gonna go soon. They're gonna become too expensive, at least for a moment. And during that moment, the mobile is gonna see a big boom, right? Because alternatives are gonna shrink. And guess who is at the cutting edge of, say, technology? China. Look at this. Quite an interesting video here. But again, I've also learned people who ruin video games and ruin products. Reviewers are a big problem, brothers and sisters, right? Reviewers are a big problem, right? And these streamers also, they are also gonna, sooner or later, people are gonna realize, right, that these influential streamers, these big tech, they're actually more destructive than constructive, right? I don't know why they're not productive, because that would be benefit their bottom line in the long run. But they have become, especially those who play video games, as a job, those especially, right, they usually get really excited when the game comes out, right? But again, right, when it comes to it, when people have caught up to the game, right, the learning curve has shifted, right, and they start losing and losing and losing and losing. They always find an excuse, right? I've seen this happen so many times, right? They just get no wins in the games, and they start complaining that the game is broken and this and that, and then they quit and they move to another game, and the reputation of that game is ruined, and money is lost. People get cut off, they lose their jobs, studios get monopolized, man. The monopoly monster, right? It's extraordinary. You can look at the video game industry, you'll be shocked about what Sony and Sony is doing out here, as an example. Now it's Tama out here. Well, Rubio, why do you keep exposing yourself? Well, in this particular time in the video, he was talking about the oil, right? And he was saying that the Venezuelans were basically paying off their loan using oil. Why would Rubio be or have a problem with that? Because of the dollar. This is about the dollar, right? It's about the dollar. So he made it look like it was a problem. It provoked him somehow, you know, that the Venezuelans were paying using resources, as he called it, barter trade, right? Is there anything wrong with barter trade? That's the mother of all trade as we know it. Before you greedy individuals came in there with the fiat currency and made everything worse. By creating those who have and those who have not. By growing that gap exponentially. Listen to this whole thing here. It's the most, yeah. Colonialism is not dead. Huh? So I hope the Syrians get a good deal over there. Japan is doing everything it can because it's seeing the signs that everything is, as they say here, imploding on itself. 2026, a statement from a massive armada is heading to Iran, moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a large fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln than that sent to Venezuela. Like with Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission within speed and violence. If necessary, hopefully Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons. What? One that's a good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly an essence. It's truly of the essence, right? As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't, and there was an Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again. Yeah. Diego Garcia, that's the first time we wipe. That's the one we wipe the first. Okay? This is so I'm attacking you for things that you don't have and make a deal about what? About nuclear weapons. Does Iran have nuclear weapons? Was the first time you attacked Iran because of nuclear weapons? Do they have nuclear weapons? Or let me be precise, did they reach the enrichment level of the supposed nuclear weapons that you're holding against the world? And by all parties, what do you mean? Did they at that particular time have the means to deliver these weapons to the United States? Or what parties are you talking about? You're a slave, bro. You just, please. All right? So your son out here called the officials, the police, on a person abusing. That's called being a good citizen. Why is this front headline news? Is it unusual in your spheres or something that you usually stay silent when you see bad things happen? Because this is what you are telling us. Yeah, they're not gonna get no sigils. Their pictures are not gonna be plastered all over. Nah. Yeah. rooted and exposed himself, right, by insisting America cannot leave NATO, we cannot protect ourselves, this and that. Like, now it's now we got a serious question here, right? Are you the ambassador or what? Or who are you? Yeah, more information is coming out about this guy. I had a link about this guy, and of course, suspicious, right? Just like the bandage guy from Bondi. Remember that? Yeah, they're having debates, just as they're about to go to war. Yeah, he felt like, you know what? If I do this to this Somalian, I wouldn't have it so bad in the judicial system, right? I'll be fairly treated. Why? Because they are like me, you know. They are white supremacists like me, you know. These doomsday clock people. Stop pretending to be God. This world ain't going nowhere. Believe me. Okay? Most people are gonna evacuate, right? People are gonna evacuate, but the world is gonna be here. So stop this nonsense, right? Okay. Classic. Angel answer. I'm not with you, nor am I against you. Then you should be asking yourself, what makes the difference between being with you and no against you, right? This was from 10 years ago. Now I'm hearing that 40 billion has been taken from the supposed G7 Russian assets. I don't know if that is true or what, but if they were doing this 10 years ago, this is not even the first time, right? There must be consequence. Yeah, we have oil, a lot of it, to basically live without depending on anybody. But again, these corporations, much more powerful than Dangote over there. What do you think they'll do? They'll pay off politicians, and those politicians will then make policies that will be like, again, shooting yourself in the foot, you know? You should get on top of this.
Which brings us to Upside Foods that has literally produced hundreds of thousands of pounds of chicken meat without killing.
Okay, I told you about curses and spells, right? Curses and spells, right? Well, what did you just hear? Let me ask you that. They produce thousands of pounds of chicken, right? Remember, this guy, his biggest audience are young people, right? I'm talking below 30, right? Below 30 is the people that this guy here, right? Again, the usual, the usual way he came up, right? The usual way that modern people come up is to humiliate yourself, or, I don't know, do the most absurd thing ever, right? And that was the come up of Mr. Beast, right? But of course, I knew even from back then that this guy here, something very suspicious with him, right? Very suspicious with him. And I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. He's a tool, right? He's a tool.
A single chicken, which is incredible because...
Okay, Trana, now the psychological programming is deep, right? First, they convinced you that they are producing the same type of chicken, right? A natural chicken, and whatever they are producing is the same. That is not true. And the second layer of that, okay, the layer that they got the vegetarians, right? The type of psychological operations which create vegetarians to sympathize, right? Like they frame it, they would literally convince a lion to feel bad about eating a gazelle. Like, a nigga, like.
Over 220 million chickens are killed every single day in order to sustain demands for their meat.
So what if we left that number? What then? Like, I'm trying to understand. Trying to play on emotions of people.
Outside Foods has spent over $200 million in research and development in order to create this technology. Let me show you how we do it. Please do. I don't understand.
When we took cells from a chicken egg in 2018, we cracked an egg, we took a small amount of cells, and we froze them in this. That goes down to minus 80.
Wow. And you've used those cells to make hundreds of thousands of pounds of chicken meat.
Step 2 is we take those cells, we gently thaw them out.
Oh my gosh. This is simulating a chicken's body, and the cells are just multiplying.
Once we get enough of them, we move on to step 3.
This is protein, fat, sugar. I'm literally feeding the chicken cells over there so they can multiply into chicken meat.
That's right, yes.
And once the chicken feed is in the container, it moves all the way through these pipes and through the factory, and eventually ends up in here.
You can look through this. You'll see chicken cells just swimming and swimming in there.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of chicken.
Every 2 seconds, this produces a chicken's worth of chicken meat.
Yeah, every few seconds.
And saving chicken lives is not the only upside to Upside Foods. These chickens don't get diseases, so you don't have to worry about a disease spreading on the farm and then you eating a sick chicken. Honestly, it seems too good to be true.
Well, let's go and try it.
Please, I need to try it. I need to see how this tastes. Now we're going to put the meat we just grew to the test. Come on in. I brought one of the best chefs I know, Nick DiGiovanni, and he's prepared for us 2 chicken sandwiches. One of these sandwiches, a chicken was killed to...
Another classic delusion, right? It's like you have a bottle of artificial flavored apple juice and another bottle with real apple juice, right? This is the definition of this test here. So you're telling me the only way to really quantify the nutritional value of these 2 meats is by doing a taste? Is that?
Data man. The other, no chickens were killed. It was grown in a lab. Which do you think we'll like better?
I think if I cook it right, you won't be able to tell.
Okay, this is gonna be a good test. He's now giving me one of each chicken sandwich. So we're both trying this one. Here's what it actually is. Me and Drake do not know. Cheers. Cheers. Here we go. Well, chicken.
Chicken.
Now we're gonna try this one. This is what it is. We don't know. Cheers it. I honestly can't tell. It's actually scary how similar they... I mean, they're both chicken. No matter what, both of them taste really good. This one's the cultivated one.
You're wrong.
No shot.
That's...
Scary is the word. But hey, they're gonna continue like this. Why? Control, right? This is the last evolution, right, of a humongous poultry production farm, right? They wanna, this is what they do, to kill every other farm. So, anyway, I've gone on for long. Let me not go on for longer. We shall, or rather, you shall hear from me when you hear from me the next time. It's easy. Signing out. Love you. Bye.